Welcome to the June 4th meeting of the Parks, Recreation, Community Service Commission. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioners Khan,
Here.
Rockfogle,
Yes, here.
Sharkey,
Here.
Sinanian,
Here.
Ward.
Here.
The agenda for the June 4, 2008 meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the City of Glendale's website on Thursday, May 29, 2008 at 1 p.m.
Okay, our first item is some introductions.
Introductions and presentations.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Brittany to introduce two new staff members. We have actually three.
Great.
But two in the administrative office who we'll all be working with, including yourselves. And we think they're fantastic, and we're really looking forward to working with them.
So our first introduction is Iris Hidalgo, who is our taking the minutes of our meeting today, sitting here in front of us. Iris, we were fortunate to grab from our city clerk's office. If any of you had gone into the city clerk's office previously, she was there at the front desk of the clerk's office. But now she's promoted to our department and is an administrative assistant. Iris will be responsible for assisting the commission. She's our wireless cell phone coordinator, our volunteer coordinator, our commuter coordinator, and she's also our representative on the Employee Human Relations Committee for the department. So we're very excited to have her, and if you would welcome her to our department.
Very coordinated. Yeah, thank you.
She's very coordinated.
Yeah. Well, it's a great asset for joining this department. You're going to love it. Who else? Recreation Parks is fantastic. Welcome.
And then our second introduction, if I'd invite Miriam up to the podium. Come on up. Miriam Mosesian was previously working for our Public Works Department in vehicle maintenance. She reported under Dave Cole, who has told me that I have to take personal good care of her. So she's now with us at our front desk in our department. She took Bertha Albright's place, and Miriam will be responsible for primarily providing customer service to our patrons. She'll also be assisting with various personnel transactions and our payroll functions in the office, so we're very happy to have her as well.
Okay, welcome.
Welcome.
Next on the agenda is the introduction of Savag Garabetian, Community Services Coordinator.
And for this one, I invite Julianne Leviant, who is our supervisor of the Adult Recreation Center, and Sevag, don't be shy, come on up too. But I'll turn over the introduction to Julianne to introduce you to Sevag.
President, Ward, Commissioners, and Executive Staff, I would like to introduce Sevag Garabetian.
Hello.
And he was part-time for about a year with us for Parks and Recreation, and now he is full-time down at the Adult Recreation Center. He's a full-time Community Services Coordinator.
I want to say thank
Welcome.
you and for the wonderful opportunity, and I hope it make you guys proud.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Yeah, it's a nice facility. Wait till the new one shows up.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, oral communications, do we have any
We have none.
at that time? Okay, then on to consent items.
For consent items, the following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of the commission or audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed. Approval of the minutes of the commission regular meeting held on May 7, 2008.
Commissioners, have you had a chance to review the minutes?
I did. I had one change.
Okay.
There was something that when we were discussing the Montrose Shopping Park and the landscape project, I brought up something about the sign, the existing Montrose Shopping Park sign, and there was some comment about, well, there may not be a budget for that, but at least we wanted to talk about the possibility of updating that sign. Because there's a number of events, community events, and it would be nice, we talked a little bit about similar to the Civic Auditorium sign. That wasn't reflected in the minutes. So if we can add that, that would be great.
Absolutely, we'll add it back. It was originally in there when I was editing, but we'll add that back in there.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments?
No.
Do we have a motion to approve as amended?
I'll move.
I'll second it.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Can we have roll call on that, please?
Commissioners Khan,
Yes.
Rob Fogel,
Yes.
Sharkey,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Under business agenda, we have reports for information only, the first being the Senior Congregate Meals Program update and cooling stations.
Again, I'll turn this over to Brittany and Carolyn McCune.
Yes, so I've invited Carolyn McCune and also Irma Hopkins are here today from our senior programming section, and they're here to give us an update on our cooling shelters and also our new meal site that we have in store for us.
Good afternoon, President Ward, Commissioners. I am Carolyn McCune, Community Services Manager for Human Services. I am very excited to report to you that we have applied for continued funding for both our Congregate Meals Program as well as our Home Delivered Meals Program. And I'm pleased to announce to you that we received an additional 4 years of funding from the Los Angeles County Area Agency on Aging, which is great news for our seniors in the community who receive both homebound meals and congregate meals. In terms of what's going to be different next year, mostly everything the same. We do have a change that I'm excited about. We think is really going to enhance the program. Previously, we served at Spar Heights Community Center, Maple Park Community Center, and Adult Recreation Center. We're moving operations from Maple Park Community Center over to Pacific Community Center. Maple enrollment has been declining over the past few years, and we think that there's a great opportunity at Pacific Community Center given the ongoing lifelong learning classes that the elderly are already enrolled in. Irma Hopkins, who is our Community Services Coordinator in charge of Congregate Meals, is here with me today. She did a trial day over at Pacific to announce the new service, to see how they liked the food and what they would think of the service. Got overwhelming response. We had about 65 meals served that day. They're excited about receiving meals starting July 1st. And so we're excited about that as well. And then we've also notified the participants at Maple Park. We have about 5 regulars, so it's not a big impact. We've offered them transportation assistance to get them to either Spar or Adult Recreation Center or Pacific, whichever is their choice. And we haven't received any large complaints about the change. I think they've seen it coming and so that they understand the change. But certainly we should expect to see our revenues increase from this as well as our participation and get out to more seniors, particularly in the west side of the city. And then as we head into the summer months, as it's going to continue to, heat is going to rise, July 1st starts our cooling stations. We're extending our hours at Adult Recreation Center on Sundays. We are open 7 days a week. They're serving meals each day. So we'll extend the hours on Sundays and Saturdays to ensure that the elderly and the disabled have a safe place to go to get out of the heat in case they don't have air conditioning or fans in their own home. And that service will be available at Spar Heights as well, and then Pacific is open on Saturdays already. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a question on the cooling centers. Do you advertise, or is there any way that we get the message out to other people that maybe aren't participating in the meals program that this is a location to go to cool down if they don't have something in their house to be able to
President Ward,
cool?
thank you for asking. We do do a press release, and then Glendale News Press makes sure and gets the word out. Last year they came out, did an article as well as some pictures of some ongoing activities that we had, and then we listed on our website as well. We typically get some phone calls.
Hope we're successful again this year to get some press on it. Yeah.
I sat with a group of regulars at what a happy group. And they love their meals. Some of them take them home, but they don't finish, and so it's a great program.
How many people do you think you'll have on an ongoing basis at Pacific Park, and how is that going to compare to the other two locations?
On average, at Spar, we're serving about 55 meals per day, 6 days per week. At the Adult Recreation Center, we're serving between 50 and 55 meals per day, 7 days a week. We're hoping to get 40 meals per day, Monday through Friday at Pacific, on an ongoing basis as an average.
Good.
Commissioner Ward, just clarify, Carolyn, that is there a threshold for the cooling stations? I don't think there is, but
There is not.
so they're open every day during the months of July and August.
Yeah, and if we need to extend it a little bit into September because of the temperatures, we will be happy to do so.
Yeah, I think that's important that we offer that.
When does the construction of the Adult Recreation Center start?
I'll turn that over to Mr. Ahern, our CIP administrator. We are, I think, going out to bid in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but
Soon.
at the end of the summer, correct?
We are going to be going out to bid right now. We're trying to get on the council agenda with our bid documents. And so you go out to bid on a project like that, probably 45 to 60 days of time for somebody to bid a project to that scale, get it back, evaluate the bids, award the bid. So we're looking at a start of construction that's late fall
Yeah, September.
this year.
And then
Fall of
how
this
long
year.
would that take, the construction?
Probably an 18-month construction period, I would estimate. Some of that construction will have to be sequenced to, given some of the on-site activities, and we also have to relocate the tennis courts as part of that, so.
So then as it relates to your item, during that time period, is there a temporary facility that's going to be set up for the meals and the cooling stations and stuff like that?
The Adult Recreation Center currently has two buildings, one being the recreation building and the other the cafe. The cafe will remain during construction, so there won't be any disruption of meal service during that time.
Okay,
It will be demolished after the new facility's up and running.
Okay, great.
excellent. Any other questions? Thank you.
The next report is the fiscal year 2008 through 2010 budget status.
Yeah, let me just give you a brief update on the budget. I will give you, there's a handout here of our 5% cuts. As you probably know, the city, we all went through an exercise where each department was supposed to come up with a 5%, potentially 5% cut. And we did our part, and I think every department, in essence, took a 5% cut, some a little bit less, some a little bit more. And as you can see, we looked at the vacancies first and foremost, and here's some of the positions that we eliminated. We think this will be a minimum impact to the department. We moved 2 project managers to the CIP budget. Given that that's where their time is being spent, we felt that that's where their time should be charged. We had a vacant administrative assistant position, a number 1 position. We're going to pick up the administrative workload in our office without that position. It may take a little longer to get some things done, but that's the nature of the beast. What Gary did was eliminated 1 park service manager position and then consolidated some of the duties of 1 park service manager with the person that handles our contractor. So 50% of his time will be with Parkwood and Valley Crest contractors, making sure they maintain their end of the contract, and the other 50% overseeing one of the sections. And then Gary has a vacant equipment operator that can stay vacant. I think some of his guys are going to do the smaller mowing, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. Pesticide applicator position, that will probably go away. There's a gentleman that's right now out, fairly sick.
Okay.
We don't expect him to come back. And then we have an office services special that's vacant. So, and then Brittany did some reductions in the operating hours of 4 or 5 community centers. Not minimal, but there's going to be a slight impact, but not too much. We were also asked for 7.5% and a 10% cut. If you look at the right-hand corner, those were the dollar figures that we were actually shooting for in the 7.5% and 10% cut. It was $1 million and then $1.3 million, or almost $1.4 million. Yeah. That would have devastated us. Fortunately, we didn't have to go there. I mean, we did the exercise, but didn't have to go there. So hopefully we won't have any more cuts. At this point, we can probably live with this. There is a slight impact, but after that, it really gets down to the bones and cutting in the bone.
Yeah. The forecast for the following year maybe have to take those steps.
Yeah, I don't know. This year they found a $10 million shortfall, and they're trying to figure out where that is. But I think at this point, the city manager did notify the council we need to start looking at revenue sources. Some of the revenue sources that other cities have that we don't have here. So we're going to be looking at other revenue sources. And for us, it may be if it gets down to the 7.5 and 10% cuts, we're going to probably have to look at charging some of the user groups a little bit more for fields. There are some user groups that don't get charged anything for fields. So it may have to be $2 or $5 an hour just to make up to make sure we have the staff out there to maintain the fields.
At least to cover the expenses of operating
Right.
their permits.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
gloom and doom kind of thing, but
Okay.
and I'd
So
be glad to take any questions that you may have, if I can answer them.
The cuts at the facilities, you said they're not significant. What kind of cuts are we talking about? Hour cuts?
Yeah, do you want to answer that?
Sure. What we did was we really took a look at the participation levels at the various centers, and we're talking about Pacific, Maple, Brand Studios, the Adult Recreation Center, and Spar Heights Center. And in talking with the staff, looking at the trends of where participation is, some sites, for example, the Spar Heights Community Center, we had originally had it open till 8 o'clock at night, and participants just aren't really using it that late. So we're taking a look at, are there classes on certain days that we need to accommodate? If not, and no one's walking in the door, it doesn't make sense to necessarily have it open just in case somebody walks in the door. So that's kind of how we're looking at it. And then on the flip side, you take Pacific Community Center, it's probably one of the most active centers in the evening. We're looking at trying to make very minimal reductions there because we don't want to impact all the community users that it is getting, where they may be a little slower in the morning, so we may end up opening a little bit later and looking at it that way. But I'm sitting down with my staff tomorrow and kind of ironing out and finalizing the various schedules of those centers to be published in the upcoming fiscal year. But we're trying to minimize that impact, but really just kind of doing scales of economy anyway.
Okay.
And for folks at home who are listening, I didn't really tell you how much that is. I know it's on the sheet of paper. It's $670,000 cut for our department. And that's substantial.
And your fiscal year is July?
July.
Right.
And our general fund budget is $13.3 million, or $13.4 million almost.
Okay. Now, the CIP budget is separate than the operational budget?
It is. It is.
And that's why we can charge things to projects? Okay.
Yeah, they're very project-specific, and we'll have to watch our costs, with the projects.
Yeah. Been pretty good so far. Come in on time. Okay. Any other questions regarding the budget? Okay. Thank you very much. Next item.
The next report is a Rock Haven update.
Now, having said that about budgets, we now have a 3.5-acre potential park site, as you all know. I mean, you probably have the background on it. There's I think there are 14 buildings on the site. And we just had a community meeting. What I'd like to do is call Coco Panosian, who's helping take the lead on this. And this is kind of a high-profile project for the department. We're the lead agency on this.
Okay.
But we're working with Public Works, the library, city attorney, planning. It's going to be a major effort in terms of getting community input, master planning for this facility, but I think it's going to be fun. But having said that, at some point it's going to need maintenance and operational dollars that later on we're going to have to try to find somehow, some way. This as well as a pool that we're going to be building.
So it will be deeded as parkland, the site?
Yeah, it's going to be parkland at this point. But again, the preliminary plans were for a library on the site. But as you see, the site has a lot of buildings, and if all of them are kept, we're going to be kind of limited in terms of what can and cannot be done. But again, we'll ferret all that out with the master plan process that the community is going to be involved in. Coco, go ahead and give an update on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chapchin. Good afternoon, Commissioner Ward, President Ward, and Commissioners. My name is Gogo Panos, I'm Administrative Analyst for the department. What I have on the screen for our viewers is the actual location of the property in question, Rock Haven Sanitarium. It is just east of La Crescenta Avenue, north of Honolulu, between Hermosa and Pleasure Way on the east. As you may see, the several buildings located on that, I believe 14 historic buildings on site at this point that we've assessed, and a garage that's located. And if you can see right over here, these two locations, these two sites are vacant lots, and also we have two vacant lots up north over here. The property itself is, I believe, 3.4 acres altogether. City acquired the property April 15th, and as you may very well know, it was $8.25 million for the acquisition. 2 weeks prior to the acquisition, several city departments pulled together their forces and did an assessment of the site. We did a thorough walkthrough to assess for some of the conditions of the landscape, the buildings, security perspective from the police, from the fire. We wanted to get their perspective of what some of the immediate needs are going to be at the property as soon as we take possession of it. From a security perspective, the police wanted us to secure the property, the fencing, and some of the gating that we have. They asked for some additional security lighting in the facility, as well as possibly the trees that are within there. They are so overgrown that trimming of the trees may allow more light in there. So that was from the police perspective. Security issues were identified. From a building inspective, we assessed some of the buildings. There are several issues in the buildings. Most of them being historic, obviously, they need to be preserved. However, the buildings right now, they have lead paint. Some of the buildings have mold. There may be some asbestos. So we have to be very careful in what type of work we actually get done on those buildings. And plumbing issues. Electrical is actually very sufficient at this point, but there may be needed to do some upgrades. In terms of plumbing, there's plumbing issues. We face already some backups, and we've had plumbers out there, some of our staff, some of public works staff, trying to resolve some of the plumbing issues. At this point, I believe almost resolved, but we've had some portable restrooms out there for the crews and the security guards that we have on staff to use. From the landscape, there are a number of dead trees, some shrubbery. There's a lot of debris from some previous constructions. As you may know from historically, some of the buildings from an earthquake was demolished, so they were upgraded. Some of that debris is located in the vacant parcels right in this area. So there's quite a bit of debris removal that is needed on the property, as well as trimming of the trees, some of the landscaping, shrubbery, to bring it up to somewhat of a safe and beautiful shape. From fire's perspective, they wanted us to clean up the debris and also the dead trees to remove from the property as well. And from our historic preservation perspective, 14 of the buildings, as I mentioned, are historic. There are a number of artifacts on the property, beautiful artifacts. A lot of the pots and planters that are located across the property. We, at this point, were able to preserve those. We moved most of them to the garage and the administrative building where the security guards are stationed to keep them in a secured, locked location to be able to preserve them. And as I mentioned, this is a multi-departmental effort. We've had several departments involved in the process. What we did initially, as soon as we took the property over, we contracted with security company that we've used in our different properties, in our other locations, like at the sports complex at the Civic. And we have 24-hour security monitoring that facility at this point. We did change all the perimeter locks on the property, as well as some of the buildings that we need secured, some of the artifacts that we have. We're taking care of the plumbing problems at this point. Along with Gary and some of the management staff, we walked the facility and assessed some of the landscape needs, immediate landscape needs. At this point, we invited 2 of our landscape contractors that we have on board, Valley Crest and Parkwood. They did a walkthrough of the site as well. They gave us a couple of bids. We are ready to move with the Valley Crest bid. We're going to go to council within the next couple of weeks to be able to amend the existing contract and add this additional work. So we'll address the landscape abatement issues. From a tree trimming perspective, Public Works, they have West Coast Arborists on their contract. They work with us. They got West Coast Arborists already scheduled. Today was going to be their first day to do some of the tree trimming work. And once they are completed and moved out, it'll make it easier for us with Valley Crest to come in and do some of the landscape maintenance at that time, not having to worry about some of the trees. I'm not sure if you visited the site or seen, some of those trees are overgrown. They're leaning, some oak trees, the branches are leaning on the trees. There's a lot of shrubbery that are growing onto the buildings, like vines or whatnot. So there's quite a bit of work that needs to get done on that site in terms of from a landscape perspective. Okay, and lastly, we are looking at getting a historic consultant on board as well to do a further assessment of what should be preserved and give us some ideas of what we need to be doing. As Mr. Chapchin mentioned, we held a community meeting last Saturday, the 31st of May, at Dunsmore Elementary. It was a good turnout. We had approximately 50 people that came out. They were all very excited. They were very interested in getting onto the property. They do understand some of the work that needs to get done before we actually allow them on the property. Because not only the landscape abatement, there's a lot of the walkways. There's some of the walkways that are uneven. There's some of them that are broken off. We just need to make sure everything is safe and secure for them to be able to get on board and be able to use the facility. That's all that I have at this point. If you have any questions that I may be able to answer, I'm more than happy to address them.
Yeah, I have some questions.
Yes.
First of all, I think it's an excellent purchase for the city of Glendale. I think that this was a facility and a piece of property that really is going to work out well. In terms of comments from, you said you had this public participation meeting. What were some of the comments? What was being discussed?
The focus of the meeting we held was to update the community basically of what I've presented to you and what we found, what we are doing. But there were several input from the community that came up. They wanted to make sure the city preserves this because they believe it is a historic site. Most everyone, I believe everyone there agreed that it was a good purchase by the city. And some of the comments were they were like, the community would like to be a part of what is decided to be on the facility. And we addressed through the planning department and through our department, we're going to hold a master planning series of community meetings to get their input. Most of them wanted to make sure that that is held. They wanted to be part of the decision making on that facility to be able to address what the needs are. Some of the community members said possibly libraries. Some of them mentioned that they like to be a part of it as historic societies having use of the buildings. We talked about potential guided tours in the upcoming future once we have the facility safe and sound. Those are some of the comments that came out of the community. Mostly positive and mostly very pleased to see the city is actually taking action.
When you went to this, I guess it was a city staff, when all the city staff went to the site, and you had obviously people from the building department.
Correct.
And you mentioned that there's 14 buildings, and some are all historic, and you're going to bring a historic consultant on board. Was there any evaluation done by building as to their...
Yeah, I'm not sure we know how many are historic, Commissioner Khan. I think we had Jay Platt, who's our preservations planner, out there looking at the buildings. That's why we're going to engage the service of a consultant to actually look at the buildings and assess the historic nature of it and how many should be kept and how many shouldn't be. But our facilities maintenance administrator, I think that's what John Hickman's title is. He and his staff walked through each and every one of the buildings and did their own assessment in terms of what it did need. And, most of them need a lot of work. Even though they may look good from the outside, there's a lot of work that needs to happen on the inside.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just to add, President Ward, one of the buildings the former caretaker used to live in, that is one building that John Hickman's staff is at this point retrofitting, doing some of the roofing work and the flooring work. As soon as possible, as soon as it is habitable, our intent is department's intent to get a caretaker in there to be able to address some of the current needs, and be able to actually keep an on-site monitoring, somebody on-site to be able to monitor that on a daily basis. I forgot to mention there's no working irrigation system on site as well. So there's some hose bibs and some sprinklers they used to use, but none of it is really a solid working system. So there's going to be quite a bit of work from our end to get it up and running.
We need to get the caretaker on site as soon as possible, just so, we're paying a lot of money for the guard, and it's just a lot easier, a lot cheaper to get the caretaker. And also, Coco, if you can point out to the administration building, this front building over here, that seems to be in pretty good shape. It seems to have been built very recently compared to the other buildings anyway. What we want to do is make that usable as office space for the rangers, and so that during the day the rangers can come in and out of there, and it can be secure, and in the evenings and weekends the caretaker can be in there.
Yeah, that'll prevent vandalism or any other things.
Right. Yeah. So, what I'd like to also do is, before we do any tours for the community, is do a tour for the commissioners. We're just worried about tripping hazards. Once we get the cleanup done, so we can see all the tripping hazards, because there's some things in there I'm not sure we're going to be able to see until they come in and really clean it.
Valley Crest when they finish.
So if you'd like, we can schedule a visit.
Sure.
Very nice.
I was going to ask that. What's the square footage on one of the buildings, just to get an idea of how big these buildings, how large they are, or small?
Unfortunately, I do not have that information for you.
That's all right.
But we can ask to see if in the plans if they have that information.
I did get a pretty good idea with Bob McFall's presentation. Have you all seen that slide presentation?
No.
Excellent.
Is it?
It's excellent.
I think that administrative building's probably about 2,000 square feet, maybe, total, because I think there's also a kitchen in there, isn't there?
There is.
So,
Actually, kitchen
yeah.
space.
I'm sorry, I may be getting ahead of myself, but what type of buildings are these? A two-story residential type? What is it that may potentially make them historic?
It's an old sanitarium.
It is an old sanitarium. The facility, some of the buildings were used as residential property for some of the patients, if we want to call them, that stayed on the property. There are a couple of the houses that are more for individual, whoever was able to afford their own room or housing, they had that, and some were shared. A lot of them, they had some commons rooms, they had recreation rooms, they had the kitchen where they actually ate, the cafeteria was one of the buildings. And some of them are two-story, some of them have a basement as well. Quite a few of them are one-story buildings, but the potential that the facility has, I mean, it doesn't give it justice right now. But once we get it cleaned up and some of the courtyards and the landscape areas that they have, it's got the feeling of your beautiful backyard. Very cozy, very beautiful. And I think it has a lot of potential once we get up to date. But in terms of spacing, I'm sure we can get some of those details for you later on as to the square footage. But it's a multi-use. Each building had a specific use. One of them was the nurse's location, and we can also give you an update on specifically which buildings for what.
How far from Spar Heights is the facility?
Mile and a half.
Yeah, not far.
It's Commissioner Ward members, Chairman Ward members of the Commission. It's probably about a mile and a half.
Crow's
Just
Flight.
to add on to what Coco was saying, in my earlier life in redevelopment, I did a lot of historic renovation and adaptation. The threshold on historic is very low. If it's 50 years old or more, you automatically need to evaluate it for historic significance. So when we talk about these buildings, we say they are all potentially historically significant as soon as they're 50 years old. And then you begin to look at other issues such as architectural design that was historically significant. Did someone of historic significance live or design the place, live there or design it? Did some historic event occur there that was like the Casa Adobe
signing of the documents,
where they signed the peace treaty, or Casa Verdugo because of its architectural design. So those are other more significant criteria, but automatically when a building's 50 years old, we, as a government agency, we immediately classify it as potentially historically significant, and all that means is that we're then going to evaluate it for significance based on some very specific criteria. And as we go through that, then we'll begin to know places like the Good House or the Doctor's House, which are the last remaining examples of an architectural style, are probably pretty easy to pick out. So that's kind of the framework for evaluating it.
It's not necessarily historic that Marilyn Monroe's mother was there, but it's kind of a curious kind of thing.
Although that did have all the flies in the room. That room was the room was the one that had all the black flies flying around.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say ghost.
Well, I think there's urban legends have been started already by a few people. I won't name names, but
go ahead.
Well, no, we are spending some money on just a sewer system for 2 buildings, and it's between 25 to 30,000. So the costs are going to start adding up. We have 500,000 in the account for maintenance and to get things rolling, but this is going to take some time and some money. So what we're trying to do is I know there are a lot of people excited about it, a number of people in the community, and they want to get in right away. And we're trying to convince them to hold off a little bit. There's still a lot of work to be done, and this should be a slower process than they want, but I know they're going to want access to it as soon as possible.
Sure. So after some of these assessments, when do you think you'll be able to probably put up like a master planning committee together and actually come up with some of these? Are we about a year away?
Oh, no, I don't even think we're a year away. I think we're not that far away. I know that Hassan has names of a couple of good consultants that can do master planning that really can actively engage the community. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be hard to engage this community because they want to be engaged in this process. So I think we can start in the next 3-4 months. and then however long that process that they recommend would be. So we can roll on that fairly quickly.
Maybe our next meeting, show a few slides.
Oh, absolutely.
It really
Be more than
gets
happy
you
to put some of the
motivated
pictures
to,
together. By that time, hopefully, we'll have most of the tree work done. We may be in the midst of the landscape abatement work, but we'll be able to provide some pictures of
some of the
during the work and
Bob
to give
McFall
you.
had.
And we can get some of the Bob McFall's pictures as well.
They're all so nice, those pictures.
They
I
are.
kid Bob about it.
Yeah.
He makes the facility look a lot nicer than it is when you look
Well,
at the...
he's pretty excited about
Yes,
it, too.
he is excited about it.
Very nice. Great. Any other comments? Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Exciting.
Next update.
Camping and community hike report.
Turn this over to Dave, who's going to... You want to introduce?
Sure, we'll go right to Jeff.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the Commission, Jeff Weinstein, Park staff. The past 2 months, we've had some very exciting things happening with our trails and open space program, and I'd just like to touch on a few of those. On June 17th, we're taking an item to the City Council, and what we're asking for is approval of a submittal for a $50,000 planning grant from the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. And this grant will be used to look at youth overnight camping. And I'll explain that in detail in a minute. The other thing was last week at the State of California's Trails and Greenways Conference, we received an award along with the City of Burbank for the Verdugo Hills Hike community event. This was one of 2 events that was honored at the conference. Also, the California Recreational Trails Committee, which is a group appointed by the governor to advise state parks on trail-related matters, they've chosen Glendale as the site of their winter meeting. So they'll be coming in February of next year. They'll be here for 2 days touring projects and then have their formal meeting the following day. And the theme that I wanted to present to them was urban trail development. So we'll highlight some of our Glendale projects and look at our trail planning and regional efforts with Burbank, Pasadena, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, etc. Okay. And then the last thing is that we've been involved for the last 2 months now with a calendar of events highlighting interpretive hikes, programs, and one of those events is happening this Saturday, and that will be a ranger campfire program at Duke-Majan Wilderness Park starting at 7:30. The flyer's on the City Parks website, and the title of the program is Nature's Hazards. So they'll be talking about some of the scary and dangerous things that might be out there in the wilderness.
Good campfire.
People? People, there are some scary people out in the parks, yes.
This is spooky campfire stories.
As far as our overnight youth camping, we started last month with a pilot program. We invited a Boy Scout troop, 317 from Montrose, to come up to Duke-Majan Wilderness Park, and they brought up 12 scouts and a few leaders, and some of these scouts are brand new, had never been out in the wilderness, and they just had a great time. You can see some of the activities. They pitched their tents. Their scoutmaster, Richard Toyon, and myself gave them an introduction to the park and talked about some of the things that they might be dealing with in the wilderness. They practiced some of their outdoor skills. Here they're working with their brand new backpack stoves and also practicing their knots. That's something important for all scouts to know. And then the next day they went on a hike through the wilderness park, and this was the weekend when it was about 105 out there, so they really were troopers to be out there, and you can see the group. And so we've used them in getting some feedback about what we can do to bring youth up into the wilderness. I was just presented with the plaque. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
You were going to present the plaque.
I'm going to, I thought the director might present the plaque. Yeah, well.
It's a very fine plaque.
Yes.
Yes, they have this, yes. Okay. As far as the campsites that we're looking at, we would like to look at campsites in our 3 open space areas. This is in the San Rafael Hills, where the city has had some recent open space purchases, and we've looked and found a site that is relatively flat and open, and this might be a site that people would be able to drive in, church groups, scout groups, et cetera, by permit only. And part of our study would be to look at the facilities, come up with some conceptual design and some cost estimates. The Duke-Majan Wilderness Park might be difficult to use for camping just because it's very hard to find flat, open terrain away from the main trails, but it's a beautiful location that we'll consider. And then in the Verdugo Mountains, we have the experimental forest. Sometimes it's called the Fire Warden's Grove. And the scouts were going to be hiking up to this site about 2 weeks ago, but that was the weekend when we had the rain and the thunder and the lightning. And since this is one of the highest points in the mountains and with the most trees, we didn't think it was a good idea for them to be up there. But this might be a hike-in camp where you hike in about 4 miles, either from Whiting Woods or from Latuna Canyon. And we have started our interpretive hike program. In late April, we had a hike through the Wilderness Park talking about the native vegetation and gave an update on the development of the Wilderness Park and the barn. And then last Saturday, we did a nature photo hike. And in this photo, you can see our tour leader, David Gilbaugh, who is a local educator and photographer. And some of these photos were actually taken by a young lady on the trip. She was 7 years old, and she and her father shared some photos with me. So, back. Can we go back, please? And she was fascinated by rocks, so these are a couple of her shots. And I thought, for a 7-year-old, these are quite good. Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of things are in bloom right now. And on the right, you can see the yucca, our Lord's candles, which are in bloom throughout the hills at the Wilderness Park. And we actually had some wildlife on display. That's a lizard on the left and a deer that was watching the group on the right. And I know they both seem to be posing the same way, so I don't know if there was something to the left that everybody wanted to see. And we not only want to create happy trails now, but we also want to create happy campers. So that's going to be the goal of our program over the next few months. And I passed out a tentative schedule of events, and you can see that in June, in addition to the Ranger program this Saturday, we're going to be having a trail maintenance class, which will be Thursday, June 26th. And again, these will be up on our City Park website. And this will be an afternoon in the Verdugo Mountains to do some brushing back of the vegetation and some tread repair. And then on July 12th at the Wilderness Park, we're going to actually have a class-type setting where we'll teach people the basics of trail work. Some other classes we're looking at for July and for August would be a map and compass class. A lot of people nowadays are using their GPS units to go out, but we want to teach the basics of using a topographic map and a compass so people learn that skill. And then also trying to schedule a Native American lecture and hike through the Wilderness Park. So please keep checking our website and we'll have those events on hand. And then the last attachment that you were given is a letter that was sent to Miss Bellotti by the Boy Scout troop, just thanking the Parks Department for including them in the camping experience, and that they would like to volunteer back and use the park for some Eagle Scout projects. And overall, they think it's a win-win situation for the city, the community, and the residents of Glendale. So we'll be coming back to you with calendars as these events are settled and updating you on the grant once that's received. Are there any questions?
No, thank you. That's very thorough. I like the appreciation that you put a hazardous species on the cover to make sure people are aware that there are rattlesnakes and other creatures out there and that they know what they're doing when they do go hiking. And the planned hikes and are the ones that are well orchestrated, and you have people that know the flora and fauna as they're walking, so very good.
Thank you. And we would like to invite the public, if they have any background, any skills in botany, zoology, geology, and would like to volunteer as a hike leader, we'd love to bring them on board and schedule them for a hike.
Great.
My phone number is 818-548-2000.
Good job.
Good. Richard Toyon, who wrote the letter, isn't he leading one of the hikes?
He will be leading the Native American hike.
He is a Native American Indian from this area. Yeah.
Yes, and we're looking at maybe in late July or August, depending on which way we can schedule those.
I hope I'm here for that one.
Yeah, he's done a few hikes, and when they do the Verdugo motor tour, he does one of the stops at Tongva Peak, and it's fascinating.
That little girl's name was Colette, and she was unnatural for taking photos on the hike Saturday. It was a great hike, and people are coming, a few more people each time, so our secret's getting out.
And Colette and her father were on the hike, and the next day they came back and brought the mother with them. They had such a good time.
Okay.
And I know
that's what I had.
You did
the
too.
Previous hike, my husband came back the next day.
And that's what we'd like is, the children to go up there on hikes and events and get so excited that they go home and tell their family, we need to go see this, and get them out of the house and into the outdoors.
Oh, that's a nice story.
Very nice.
It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, let's see now on the monthly activity reports.
Monthly activity reports, recreation and community services.
President Ward, members of the commission, this month's monthly activity report for Recreation Community Services is more statistical information for you. What I'd actually like to concentrate and go over with you versus this report, unless you have any questions, are the listing of events that we've handed out to you today for the month of June. In compiling the events, I usually put together an entire quarter's worth of events. But as our events for the community grow and expand, we just have broken it down by month because the total quarterly list is about 15 pages long. But as you can see here, there are a number of wonderful things coming up this summer. Some of these beginning in June, and so we have a number of senior special events and lecture series that are taking place at both the Adult Recreation Center and the Spar Heights Community Center. And as we go into the new fiscal year and begin programming at Pacific, you'll be seeing some more of those lecture series taking place at that facility as well. Towards the end of the month, we have our summer camp program that will be beginning, along with the CIT program and our summer aquatics program. So for any of those moms and dads out there looking for things for their kids to do, please give our office a call. Our leisure guide is on the website. This listing is posted about 2 weeks worth at a time on our city's homepage. And then some other really neat things that we have for the public this summer. We have our Movies, Music, and More series that will begin mostly towards the end of the month and to the beginning of July. So that is all of our summer concert series, our Movies in the Park, and our Theater in the Park program. And then, of course, our big event in the summer is our cruise night, which is in July. So at our July meeting, we'll have a number of really neat kind of highlights of things to show both the commission and the public what we have coming up. But this is just to give you a little bit of a taste of all the great things that are going on. And so we, again, invite all of you out and invite the public out to participate in our programs.
Great. Any comments from commissioners on the plan?
No.
Schedule?
No.
When my daughter's back from school, I think I'm going to start attending more of these.
Should.
Get out. Thank you for the list. Very good.
CIP projects?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, as I start this presentation, I just want to step back for a second and touch on the camping and hiking program. It really is a department effort. I know Jeff has made the presentation to you today, and he works in the CIP group, but he's doing it in cooperation with the recreation staff, with the maintenance staff, with our park rangers, everybody working together, putting something in. Mark Sturdivant, who was sitting here a few minutes ago, just left. Mark's writing the grant, and in addition to that, when he's not writing the grant, he was with them out in the field, scouting out campsites and carrying cases of water that they placed up at the wilderness. Don't go up there now because they're gone, but for the scouts. So everybody pitching in to make this thing happen, the hiking, the camping, and now the potential campsites. So it's not just one of us, it's all of us together, pitching in and doing our part. And so that's important to point out. The scouts that you saw, as Jeff had said, it was a really hot weekend that they camped up there. Brittany had some supplies left from prior events, those Gilligan-style hats, and the kids loved those things, and she made those available to Jeff, and along with bottles of some sunscreen with little carabiner rings. Mm-hmm. So for 10-year-old boys, that's guy stuff, and they were feeling pretty good about it. So that's everybody working together. So we're touching base on. With that, tonight we have a community meeting on Riverwalk at the Environmental Management Center down on Flower and Airway, and this is to get input from the equestrian users regarding the equestrian component. So that's tonight at 7 o'clock. If this meeting isn't enough for you, we have more. You can come spend time with us tonight. So that's tonight. We also have a community meeting on June 21st at 9 a.m. at Pacific Edison School in the community center, where we'll be taking community input and talking about the Pacific Edison pool. Mm-hmm. So we've mailed out to 3 schools: Cerritos, help me, Brittany, Cerritos, Pacific Edison,
Elementary School,
and there's one more.
Don't know.
There's a third one in that area that we've mailed to.
Probably Columbus.
Yeah.
Probably Columbus. And then for a mailing radius, typically we mail to a 500-foot radius. In this case, we mail to a 1,000-foot radius, in addition to sending the notices home in the Thursday folders with the kids from the school. Then we'll also doing ads in the paper, and it's on GTV6. So we've got a pretty well-structured program to get community input on that pool project. So again, that's on June 21st at 9 a.m. at 9 a.m. at Pacific Edison School in the community center. So that's our community meetings that are pending. Projects that we're going to be bidding in the very near future are the Cedar Mini Park. We're working on staff report and some final internal plan checking of those documents, and then we'll take a report to council sometime hopefully this month, to get plans and specs adopted, and then that'll go out to bid. And the same for the Adult Recreation Center. So there's some final cleanup that needs to be done on that internally, and then that will go out to bid before the end of the month. So those are 2 projects we're bidding. Projects we're completing. The Shoal Canyon ball fields will be completed in a few weeks. Then there's some planting and other things that go on, so they won't be usable for a little bit until that sod gets established and some of the other things get done. So that will come online in August. The Glen Oaks Park Joe Bridges Community Room will be completed at the end of August and come online in September. Dunsmore Community Building will be completed in October and come online that month. And then we have a playground equipment project where we're replacing playground equipment in 7 parks. We're currently processing the contract documents on that. The bid's been awarded. It's a matter of confirming insurance, bonds, all of that. And so we should have that contract finalized this month and go to work. It's about 2 weeks per park, and we have 7 parks to do, so there's 14 weeks. Some of them will occur concurrently. So we'll have that done by November. And then we'll have a number of ribbon cuttings to organize and put on, and we'll get notices to all of you for those dates. So those are kind of the key things in the capital projects group right now. A lot of other things that are in the works, but it'll be a while before we're ready to bring them forward.
Comments on that? Great.
No, sounds great.
Had a large list of projects. That's good. Always improving. It'll be fantastic for these parks to come online, as you say, and let the public start seeing the improvements we can do. Okay, next item.
Next item will be Gary
Monthly
Malone.
activity report from Park Services and Park Rangers.
Sorry, Iris. I jumped the gun a little bit. Gary Morello.
Thank you. Hello, Commissioners, President Ward. I'm going to show you two things today. One is a thing that we normally do. One is a thing we don't normally do, and we don't usually take pictures of it or whatever, but I'm going to show that to you today. You'll bear with me on my glasses, a brand new pair of glasses, and they're progressives and I can't see. So we're going to give it a shot here.
Move your nose.
I have a Brant Park landscaping project and the Adult Recreation Center for the seniors. We did some cleaning for them so they could plant. First off, it's Brant Park. We figured that since we're a maintenance company, basically we should make our yard look as nice as the park looks. So this is the front of Brant Park in the maintenance yard. We removed everything out of there, took it down to bare dirt, put in brand new sprinklers, lined out where we're going to put the plants, and then the finished product turns out to be something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the plants in the back will grow high enough to cover that fencing, but again, the other side was some turf right there too. So we decided to, like I said, dress up the front of the Brant Park yard and make the rest of the park look the same. The other project is at the Adult Recreation Center. The seniors wanted to plant some plants. And actually, I was quite impressed. That's why I had them send me the pictures of it, because I thought it was really great, because it's not easy to plant a lot of plants and have them grow the way they're supposed to grow. And the seniors did an amazing job. We cleaned out 3 areas for them, took out all the grass, put in a sprinkler for them, and we have a bucket of water or a 33-gallon can of water there for them every day. And they planted all these plants from seeds or little tiny pony packs. And actually, they're out there taking care of it. They're out there hand watering them. And the plants in real life look amazing. They grew triple size. And I was quite impressed with the amount of work that they actually put into it. And they seem to have a really, really good time doing it. So you can tell she's kind of proud there with all her tools and whatnot. And then there's the bare areas, and like I said, the plantings that they've done. Some of them are edible plants, some of them are flowers, but they've taken care of them. This happened about a month and a half ago or so, and they've tended to them. They out there weeding them and watering them. So they really had a good time. And like I said, it's not stuff we normally do, but the people at the Adult Recreation Center asked us if we could take out some grass and do that for them. So
How many seniors involved?
There's about 12 to 15 of them at least. One from Pam's group, from the developmentally challenged group, and then one from Julianne Luana. That's her group too. So they had 2 different areas, and they just had a ball doing it. And like I said, they've kept it up. We keep watering the jar for them, and they're just taking care of it really well. So pretty happy about that, and they're really kind of thrilled too.
I saw it. It's really nice.
It's quite impressive.
I love the edible flowers. Really.
Yeah, I saw the plant.
No, it's actually pictures don't quite capture it.
No, they don't capture it quite as well, but yeah.
Don't eat them. The homeless folks don't.
Oh.
Yeah. But actually, I'll have to admit that
it's always something.
Nobody has touched the gardens. They've done a really good job about respecting the people who planted them, and they've left them alone, and there's been no problem with them. And they go out there about once or twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, and take care of the place. So.
No, it's carefully watched.
Yeah.
I was watched when I was looking.
Oh yeah, everybody takes an eye towards that thing to see what people are doing.
Yeah.
So we do what we
That's
can.
Very
for them.
nice.
Came out really nice, I thought.
Great. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, we don't have public gardens in any of our sites.
We do.
Oh, it's in Verdugo Park.
We have 2 public gardens, one at Palmer and one at Verdugo.
Okay, because that's what that was similar to, sort of a...
Right, and they don't often work well. We've had some issues with them.
Yeah. Yeah, they are controversial depending upon how they're managed, or fenced or protected.
And the type of activity we've found in those.
Oh.
Yeah.
The community gardens, yeah. They're a different breed. But this is a little bit different. The community garden's a little more intense.
Certainly is.
Okay, let's see, what's our next item? We have one?
Next on the agenda is commission and staff comments.
Do we have any comments for future agendas or comments for tonight?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I liked the comment that you made, George, about having the commission go out to the Rock Haven site. Since Parks is the lead agency here, it'd be nice for us not just to go out to the site, but also to participate.
Absolutely.
Because I'm noticing a lot of times we get the reports kind of and updated, which is great, but it'd also be nice to hear it firsthand and also to have some input.
Absolutely.
So, especially on that type of a project. It is a high-profile project. It is an exciting project that I think a lot of people are very interested in. So I think that would be great.
Absolutely. I think you should see the site before anybody else does. You should be involved in the community process if you'd like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Process.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
announcement of the community meetings coming up and stuff is also...
One of the other things we can do is when we have a meeting with staff and the consultant talk about the community process, we can certainly invite, or if you want to have a representative as a commission there, that would work well with me. I'd like
I would like that.
Sure.
Yeah, then we can speak firsthand on comments and things of that
Correct.
nature
Right.
where you were questioning
Right.
what the comments were.
Sure.
And Dave and his folks are going to take that over, and because it ends up being, at some point, a capital project, but we're all going to work on it together.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was sorry I couldn't make that meeting Saturday. I really wanted to.
There's going to be plenty more.
Good.
Yeah, normally it's a multiple...
And really, the intent really was, I know they're all clamoring to get in there, the intent was more to let them know what we found instead of community input. It ended up being a little bit of community input because they were there and they wanted to tell us what they wanted, but it was really, here's what we found, here's what the landscape looks like, and Gary gave, 15-minute presentation on the landscaping and the needs out there, the building conditions, so those type of things, and Jay's assessment, the historic assessment, and the next steps was what it was. But in that process, people wanted to let us know what they thought.
They want to be heard. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, even the documentation of the site, because it's one thing for people to be curious, they have curiosity going in there and see what it looks like and then to leave, but to actually plan something out. I know I've driven by that site. It's been a while since I've been on it. There's a huge grade difference from one street to the other. There's also quite a number of oak trees throughout the site,
right,
along with these other buildings. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic to try to place new structures, what you're going to do with the existing structures and things like that.
Absolutely.
So,
well, and again, you're right. In this process, we'll find out there are 14 buildings, and they take up a majority of the site. And
correct.
What's left is not a whole lot of space.
Right.
And if they want to build a large library, they're going to have to figure out how to do that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely, we will get you involved.
Great.
We want you involved in this.
Good.
Additional comments?
Well, this is more of a sort of a personal comment, but I'm going to take a chance and make it anyway. This Friday night at 8 o'clock at the Alex Theater, the Glendale Educational Foundation is hosting their second annual student showcase. I have tickets if anyone here is interested, but also tickets are available by calling the school district or at the Alex Theater. What's really exciting to me this year about this project is the College View School, which is our school in the district for developmentally disabled children and really adults. They can stay there till they're up till I think 21 or 22. They are participating this year for the first time. We're opening the show with a drum line from the College View School, and it's going to be a great event. Tickets are only $10, and it's this Friday night at the Alex Theater.
Good. My daughter's singing in the middle of it.
Well, there you go.
Listen, Judas.
That's a wonderful
So
school.
I'll be there.
It's a wonderful school.
Yeah. Any other comments? Yes.
I have to report this to the rest of the commissioners. Another celebration they missed. This is our once a year for the Glendale area residents who are 90 and older. It's a birthday celebration, and it was delightful. It was just, the room was just filled with happy people. I loved hearing some of the professions of these people in their 90s, from professional dancers to service in the military, including the Battle of the Bulge and serving under General Patton, teacher to businesswoman, and there was one man there, 102 years old, and who had been a pharmacy rep. And then how they attribute their long life was nutritional meals, keeping busy, sense of humor, generosity and love. And one 98-year-old loves to dance to Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald tunes. But my favorite was 91-year-old Robert, whose secret to longevity was staying single.
Yeah.
And Pam Cook left the microphone and went and shook his hand. But it was a great event. I hope you could at least stop by next year. It was wonderful. There's such an inspiration. Just wonderful group of people, and volunteers and staff included.
I was able to be there last year, not
really?
this year.
Oh, that's right. You were last year.
I was there last year, and it's really fabulous. It's a lot of fun.
Very proud of our city for doing that.
Any of us should look and be that active when we're that age.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I'm that age, I'm going to be happy that I'm that age.
Well, one man asked me out.
The single one?
No.
He wants to live longer.
Well.
So anyway, that's and I was also pleased that our hike on Saturday made the front page of the news press, which the more people that know about it, the better. So.
And this is scheduled every Saturday?
No, we have scheduled hikes, but
that's right.
We have one almost once a month, I think. Is the schedule?
Currently, in the packet that Jeff gave you is his schedule of events, and then they'll be building on that. Part of it's getting this thing up and running, and then figuring out.
Of course, you're always welcome to hike on your own, which
absolutely
is wonderful.
We're going to try to increase Jeff's time and have him work with the recreation folks as well to increase the number of hikes that we have.
Or even volunteers. If a volunteer is a Boy Scout leader, someone will do a Saturday 10 o'clock morning hike or something, then we can announce it or get it in the flyer and have volunteers do it.
Right.
Yeah, very good.
You know, I know that the Sierra Club does 2 hikes, a hike on Tuesday and a hike on Thursday in Griffith Park. We might be able to get them to maybe do something.
Yeah, and Jeff is actively involved with those folks, so he can contact them. You know, in fact, I think a lot of those folks served on his committee when he did the Trails Master Planning work.
Great. Any more comments? Do we have any?
A couple staff comments, maybe?
Yes, staff comments.
Again,
absolutely.
Commissioner Sharkey, thank you for coming out to the 90-plus birthday party. We appreciate it, and it is a great time, and we love that.
The food was good.
Yeah. The Rock Haven, let me just say, the city is really, really blessed with staff from other departments. We work with these folks, and they are dynamite. And me coming from another city, I can tell you, the folks that work for Glendale are really dynamite, from the planning staff, legal staff, public works. They came out to that site, and they came in, did their work, loved it, and left and did the assessments. And you really had to see it. I was really proud to be a member of that team. And it's hard to motivate people, but when you hire the right people, you don't really even have to motivate. And it's like, when Dave said these guys are working together, you don't really have to motivate people who are motivated to, do well. So that's a real pleasure. Both in our department, I'm really lucky, and then overall in the city. So you guys should know that the city's got some really good people working in these departments.
So you can see that in the facilities.
Yeah. And that's it for me.
Okay.
Other comments? Any written communication?
No, we have none.
Okay, then adjournment. Our next meeting will be July 2nd and Wednesday, and we'll see you then. We're adjourning at 4:15.